Hello, Dr. Dave Nichol here, trying very hard to do a live broadcast on Facebook, which seems totally determined to stop it occurring. Maybe that's karma, maybe that's a sign that I should stop doing this. Anyway, so far so good. I wanted to talk this afternoon to you about the recruitment and the sort of, I guess it's the talent crisis that it looks like we're starting to face in veterinary medicine. And I did a webinar last week, and one of the questions, the webinar was about how to unleash the power of your new graduate vets. One of the questions I wanted to ask the audience, or did ask the audience, was how long is it taking people to hire, not a new graduate, but an experienced vet? An experienced vet, how long is that taking? And so we had 100 people registered on the webinar, and then the stats started coming back in, and basically it took 64% of the audience took more than or between 5 months and 12 months to actually make that vacancy or to fill that vacancy. And I thought, oh my God, that's incredible. 17% never filled the role ever at all. You know, they're still open. And that's just incredible. That's a complete turnaround from maybe 5, maybe even 10 years ago, where it was actually the shoe was on the other foot and the practices had a lot more choice. I certainly never experienced difficulties in hiring experienced vets and nurses, and in the US technicians, okay? So I don't know if this is actually going on in the US, but it's definitely a thing here in the UK. And so what my question was, and what my thoughts for today really were, okay, why is that happening? How come we're having this problem? And one of the things that I always listen to, and when I'm talking to people, and I've heard multiple times over and over again, the 3 reasons why people think we've got a problem right now are, number one, and actually they're not in any particular order, I'm just going to list them 1, 2, 3, but number one was universities aren't hiring or bringing in through their admissions policies the people who are the best fit for general practice. So that was the first one. Number 2, Generation Y just doesn't want to work. You know, they're all lightweight and we used to do it so hard and they don't, so we did weekends where there's like 5 days solidly on call, so they should have to do that as well. And then the third one, and the most obvious one and the most commonly quoted one is, well, we have this gender bias, so 80% of people are female, and so all women are going off and have babies and then they don't come back in the workforce, okay? And whilst I think there is an element of truth to all 3 of those, the problem I have with all 3 of those is that they're all us looking to blame somebody else for the problem, and none of those are us actually taking some responsibility and going, okay, so what can we do to fix this, okay? Because if all we're going to do is blame factors outside of our control, what we're saying is we're helpless in this moment, and I just don't believe that's true. I also happen to believe that none of those 3 things is the real and the big reason why we face a form of recruitment crisis at the moment. And for me, the big reason is we're just not looking after people very well. Honestly, like, does anyone have any solid arguments that that wouldn't be the case? And why do I think that? Well, apart from the fact that I see it and I hear people all the time, and if you look at things like the Vet Confessionals project, this wonderful project started by Halal Dugan over in the US, it's like a boil is being lanced, and you just see the angst and the pain that people have in this industry. You heap on top of that the student debt people are coming out with now, the expectation of clients. You've got a whole ton of reasons why it's not seeming to be that much fun working in our industry. And one of the things, or the last thing they need, are leaders, those in positions of power and practices, not being very good at their jobs, not looking after people terribly well, not caring the bejesus out of people, so that they want to stay, they want to work, they want to have fun, they want to enjoy their jobs, and they get all of those things in our profession, because it should be magnificent. This should be one of the best professions to work in on this earth, because we have this awesome opportunity. It's a very secure job, very stable financially. We have great opportunities to grow, to develop, to learn. We've got connection with our clients, with our patience with each other. We have a purpose and a cause that's much bigger than ourselves. You know, the preservation or the enhancement and the extension of life. You know, it doesn't get much bigger than that, right? So there's so many reasons why it should be awesome working in the veterinary industry. And it just isn't at times. And so one of the concerns I have, and the reason I wanted to get on Facebook today, was, you know, increasingly now, because people are having a hard time hiring experienced vets and technicians, what we're now tending to do, particularly in the veterinary side of things, is we're hiring new graduates, and we're putting them into roles where maybe we wouldn't have considered that 2 or 3 years ago. And we wouldn't have considered them for those roles because there isn't necessarily the support there for them to thrive in that role. Okay, so if we can't hire an experienced vet, that's our preference. If we're going to put a new graduate in there, then, you know, almost by definition, that's not a great fit, because if you wanted somebody that's experienced, it's because either it's going to be a big role, or there's going to be a lot of responsibility on there, or they're going to be expected to do things that are maybe beyond the skill set of your new graduates, right? Or it's going to be a role which is sole charge, where they're working unsupported, or they need to have a greater depth of experience in order to thrive in that role. And that's the concern that I have with what we're hiring at the minute, or with our hiring process at the minute, is if we're looking to new graduates for those roles, we're almost setting ourselves up to continue making the mistakes that we made in the past, and indeed compound them. Okay, so actually what we need to do, and here's the good news, you know, there's kind of doom and gloom with like, oh, we can only hire new graduates and we're just going to burn out our sort of talent base, and all of that's potentially true if we do nothing. The great news is that new graduates are giving us ample feedback about what they need to be happy. And the word that comes up over and over and over again is support. We have to support our new graduates better. And what does that look like? Well, it looks like it from a clinical perspective. It looks like it from an onboarding or an induction perspective. You know, tell them who people are in the practice, show them what they need to do, train them properly, teach them the price list, teach them the standard operating protocols for your practice, and set the expectations. And then meet with them and have feedback meetings with them and be available to them when they need your assistance. You know, don't just dump them in a single vet branch practice and expect them to thrive, because they're just not gonna. Don't put them on call for like nights and nights at a time and expect them not to have a mental disintegration, because that's exactly what's going to happen. And these things sound, to me, they sound kind of like sensible. This is the experience of new graduates up and down the country in the UK, and I'm sure it's the experience all around the world. And I think it's one of the main reasons why we have a problem. And if we don't fix it, and we continue to burn our talent out, then what's going to wind up happening is we're not going to have anybody working in the veterinary industry. So I think support is the biggest thing that we can possibly delivering people. And I've got a couple of resources for you, okay? So I just went on a bit of a rant there, but it's something I think is important, we've got to get to grips with. I've got a couple of resources for you. The first resource is the webinar I did last week. I've now got that on a replay setting, so right after I get off this video, I'm going to drop that link into the chat box just beneath, so there'll be a replay link that you can go in there and get instant access to it. It's like about an hour long and some Q&A afterwards, and I'll go in a lot deeper into these topics I'm kind of touching on here and give you some really good tips and pointers for how to improve the way that you look after your new graduates, and actually look after everybody in your team, okay? The second one, and the thing I'm really super excited about, is to talk about the launch of my VetX Graduate Mentoring and Accelerated Learning group. Okay, so I am going to be looking after a group of no more than 50, that's maximum class size, new graduates, and I don't mind predominantly UK, but US time zones are going to work as well. So if you're hiring a new graduate and you would like me to mentor them personally, then go onto the VetX website and have a look at what we're actually going to be doing, because it's a program that involves some structured training, teaching. So there's going to be 12 webinars on soft skills. I'm not going to be teaching them clinical stuff. That's your job, okay? But what they don't get taught at university, and what we just don't have time to teach them in veterinary practices, are the soft skills. how to get clients to say yes in the exam room, how to build rapport and confidence, how to deal with conversations with colleagues in a way that means they're not in conflict and they get through their day. You know, what's the saying? Nothing died, no one cried, and everyone went home on time, right? That's what we want for people, or the minimum operating standard is that. We're going to do there's a big community area. We're going to put everybody in. So there's an online community group, which is like a peer support network. And I will be in that group, mentoring the people within that group. And then we'll be pulling out the topics from that group and then addressing them in a separate training, which is like our hot seat session. So once a month, everybody's going to get together in a live session online, and I will pull out the common topics and we'll start formulating action plans, ways to deal with these things. So we do group mentoring on the basis of real life events that are happening to people and they're talking about in the sort of shared community group there, okay? Plus, I'm also going to introduce the mentors or the mentees into some techniques, some pretty life-changing techniques that are going to help build their resilience, help them with reflective learning, and build their emotional intelligence, all of which means they are far better shape to then put the clinical training that you give them into great shape and become happy, productive and profitable members of your team in a very short space of time. Now, if that sounds like something you would like to do, if you lack the time and the resources, and be honest with yourself, most of us do in practice. Even if we start with good intentions, when we bring a new graduate or anybody onto our teams, we say, okay, we're going to give them a great onboarding process. We're going to look after them and we're going to support their development as we go through. And then in practice, what happens is that you end up busy, or the meeting you scheduled with your new graduate has to get squashed because an emergency came in. And that's more important. Like, the animal always wins in that situation. And what happens is you put off meeting after meeting after meeting, and then time slips, and before you know it, 2 or 3 months have gone by and you haven't done the support sessions and the mentoring you meant to do. I get it, practice is busy. That's why I set up VetX, because I do have the time. This is what I do, and this is what I've been doing for the last 10 years, is building online courses and in-practice courses to help support new graduates. And I set up the first and only internships in Australia for new graduates in general practice. And so I've done this in the UK, I've done it in Australia, and now I'm doing this online. And so it's going to be a maximum 50 people on the VetX program for 2017. If you would like one of your new graduates or all of your new graduates to be a part of that, please, there'll be a link in the box underneath this video. I'm going to pop that in there right away after I get off the call. But if you go to drdavenicol.com/VetX clinics, then you're going to get information in there about that course. Okay? So, VetX, go in there, check that out. If you haven't listened to the webinar again, I'll drop the link in right away after I get off this video. It's going to go in the chat box, okay? You'll have access to both. Take the information, put it to good use, and let's start creating some positive change in the industry. And if you want to know more about VetX, then you know where to find me. Thanks very much for listening, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.